This is the beginning of a story. The story about family. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to my review for The Fast and the Furious. This movie was directed by Rob Cohen, it was released in 2001, and it starred Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, Jordana Brewster, Michelle Rodriguez, and others. Welcome to my Fast and Furious series, where I review every Fast and Furious movie released in theaters, leading up to Hobbs & Shaw coming out in August 2nd. We've got a lot of movies to cover, so let's get started with the first one. But before we get into that, just to remind you guys that if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like. Tell me what you thought of Fast and Furious in the comment section below. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell to allow notifications, so that when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know. With that in mind, let's begin. It tells the story of an LAPD cop named Brian O'Connor, played by the late Paul Walker, rest in peace. He is sent undercover to investigate the Toretto gang, led by Dom, played by Vin Diesel, who have allegedly been stealing truckfuls of DVD players, going into the millions of dollars. And while he's undercover, he becomes really good friends with Dom, and becomes romantically invested with his sister Mia, played by Jordana Brewster. And he soon has to decide whether he wants to follow his professional objectives or his personal ones. This movie is very special to me. It's one of those that I watched really often. When I first saw this with my dad, I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, it clearly is not. It has a very soft spot for me, but as I sit here now, I recognize that the movie is not very good. That's not to say that it has some good parts in it, though. As the great Dan Murrell once put it, it's a bad movie with some really good parts in there. The acting is pretty solid all around. Paul Walker, Vin Diesel, Jordana Brewster, Michelle Rodriguez, they're all doing a great job. They're not going to challenge Daniel Day-Lewis or Meryl Streep in the acting department, but for what this movie is, they do their job effectively enough. They're playing very macho men and women, and they convey their emotions very good. In another movie, I would have probably hated these characters, but considering the fact that they mostly interact with each other, and all of them act like that they've known each other for literally years, they were a lot of fun, let's just say that. In terms of the action and the driving, it really is a tale of two movies. Because on the one hand, when there's actual cars involved and they're actually doing stunts, it's legitimately impressive. Like when the cars go underneath full-sized trucks and with the trailers on top of them and they go underneath them, it's legitimately some of the best stuff in the entire movie. Especially the beginning heist and the end heist. But then when it comes to the actual street racing stuff, that's when it gets really bad. Because when it's just street racing down a straight line, it just turns into CGI, and it's not very good looking CGI either. The common excuse would be, oh, it was the early 2000s, what do you expect? Jurassic Park came out in 1993, and that's some of the best CGI ever. There's no excuses at this point. The most egregious is when they hit the NOS button and you see the blue stuff just go choo. It may have looked impressive in the early 2000s, but it didn't age very well. But the most frustrating aspect of this movie is that it sets up a lot of possible arcs, and it doesn't follow through on them. The best scene in the entire movie is when Dom is talking to Brian about how his father died in an auto race, and Dom beat up the driver that caused it, ergo leading Dom to being banned from the tracks for life. That's the best scene in the movie because it explains why Dom does some of the bouncing loony things that he does. And there are other angles in the movie that just go completely undone. Like, for example, Jesse, in one scene, talks about how he has ADD. And there's a scene where he's talking to Brian about how he really doesn't want to go to school because when he goes to school, it just messes with his head. And he talks about how when he works on cars, it just calms him down. This is never brought up in the movie again. Now I know what you're probably going to say, well, it's the Fast and the Furious, what do you expect? Well, when you bring up an ADD angle, I would expect it to go somewhere, but it never does. At least the Dom angle got a payoff in the fifth movie. But at the end of the day, this is very much a Rob Cohen movie. 90% action, 5% dumb dialogue, and 5% serious scenes. I am, however, going to give it a good rating, just for the mere fact that I have a very soft spot for this movie. Other than that, this is, like I said earlier, a bad movie with good elements sprinkled in there. But that's all for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. My name is Ryan Cam. I'll see you in the next one.